Hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Talk Radio. So, during this morning's episode, I wanted to talk about something that I've gone through in the recent years, which is healing and forgiving myself for past mistakes, and how healing is forgiving yourself is an essential part of the healing journey. So, I want to talk a little bit more about that today. So, also beginning to love yourself is part of the healing journey. And that process doesn't happen overnight. Forgiving ourselves, beginning the self-love journey, it's not a light switch. It's more of a dance. There's highs and there's lows. It's very cyclical too. You're kind of experience some of the same things that you used to experience, and then you'll recognize it, and then you'll come back around and there'll be more healing. I just got full body goosebumps when I said that. It's not going to happen overnight, and I also never like using the word healed. Like, I always feel like we're just on a healing journey. We're always going to have those old, programmed mechanisms inside of us, but when we start to recognize and create new neural networks and new programs within us, I absolutely believe that that's part of the healing journey, that's part of the healing process, but I don't know if we're ever truly healed. We're just on a healing journey, which is still beautiful in and of itself. So if you're seeking healing, if you're on that journey, obviously one of the steps in that journey is forgiving yourself, forgiving your past self for mistakes. We've all done things that we wish we could change. We've all regretted how we spoke to somebody that we loved. We all, have made decisions in the past that we regret. We can sometimes even just regret the person that we were in the past version of ourselves, and how we presented ourselves to the world. I know I've told people this before, and I maybe have even spoken about it on this podcast, but before my dad passed away, which has been 16 years now, I was 21, giving away my age. Before he passed, I was a completely different version a completely different person than I am now. And I think that I was a little bit selfish back then, maybe even a little bit materialistic when I was young. And looking back, I don't dislike that person or that version of me. She was just very young and very naive, and hadn't experienced the world yet, so the way she presented herself to the world was different and not ideal. But it doesn't make that past version of me wrong. I'm glad that past version of me existed, and I'm glad that the current version of me also exists. But we can often look back at past versions of ourselves with regret, and decisions that we've made with regret. But it's constantly looking at those parts of ourselves in those moments where we're possibly feeling regret, or even like cringe over a past mistake, a past version of ourselves. Every time that we have that happen, we have to, in the moment, forgive ourselves over and over and over again. A mantra that I've almost come up with when I'm experiencing a moment like that is, I love you, I forgive you, it's okay. I love you, I forgive you, it's okay. And you have to repeatedly do that every single time that memory comes up of, something you regret from your past. And it's not just forgiving yourself from 20, 30, 40 years ago. It's forgiving yourself from yesterday when you made a mistake. Because we're human, we're flawed, we're going to continue making mistakes throughout our lives. I made a small mistake yesterday, and I found myself this morning thinking about that, and I had to look myself in the mirror and say, it's okay, I love you. You were frustrated in the moment, but I love you. I'll tell you guys what happened. It may seem so silly to people, but so I went to Animal Kingdom yesterday. Spent the whole day there. I was exhausted. I'm walking, leaving the park, and a whole crowd of people is leaving the park. And there's these two kids who are being pretty rambunctious and running around and like hitting people with these like bubble wands. and people were getting quite frustrated, and I'm just watching them. And then at one point, I kind of wasn't paying attention, and I was walking and they ran right in front of me, and I kind of tripped and I went, dude, like out loud to the kid. And the moment I said it out loud, I thought, you didn't need to say that. Like, you didn't need to. It was just kind of a split-second reaction, like, dude, watch what you're doing. Stop running into people, sort of thing. But it didn't need to be said. And then this morning, I found myself thinking about that, and I thought, I kind of cringed a little bit, like, you could have handled that differently. I know it wasn't a big deal. All I said to the kid was, dude. But it still brought me back to a version of myself where, maybe I didn't have the best emotion control, and I didn't like that version of myself in that moment. And I thought you could have handled it differently. But it's so small, yet I still took a moment to look myself in the mirror and say, it's okay, I love you, and I forgive you. If it had been, for example, a friend's child, I might even approach the friend and be like, I'm so sorry for saying that. It might not have even been something that they were aware of or that even bothered them. But at this point in my life, I find myself, when I feel like I've wronged somebody in any way, I'll apologize. And I've apologized for past mistakes. And I will continue to do so moving forward. If somebody tells me that, I hurt them in some way in the past, I will absolutely apologize, because I don't want anybody to ever feel like that, right? So it's always our responsibility to forgive ourselves. When we forgive ourselves, it also becomes easier to forgive others and accept forgiveness in return. Also, it's helpful to remember that that unhealed version of yourself from the past who made a mistake, who, acted rashly, whatever it is, it was simply normally seeking out for a basic need to be met, right? When you made that mistake, you were seeking out love or acceptance or connection, and perhaps you weren't getting that, so you lashed out in unloving ways. I heard a quote the other day that I wrote down I wanted to share with you guys. It said something along the lines of, the people who express their love in the most unloving ways are screaming for love the loudest. And I know that that's really hard to accept sometimes, because when people wrong us, when people hurt us, it can be sometimes hard to forgive. But that is something important to remember when we see somebody lashing out in unloving ways. Most likely they are screaming for an unmet need to be met. Love, acceptance, connection, that sort of thing. They just don't know how to ask for that. A lot of us haven't been taught how to ask for that. So, they could be subconsciously asking for that in very unloving ways. So I wanted to go into, when we talk about this subject, a lot of people say, well, how do I forgive myself? How? Where do I even start? So I looked up a really great article I found on verymindwell.com, which was all about learning to forgive yourself. And it had some steps that you could go through as you begin your self-forgiveness, self-healing journey. So number one, it's beginning to understand your emotions. Asking a lot of why and what questions, such as, why am I feeling this way? What is it teaching me? What do I need to learn from this? And what is it that I'm possibly seeking, such as a core need that isn't being met? Number two, accepting responsibility for what happened and possibly even apologizing. The next step, treating yourself with kindness and compassion. So like I said earlier on, I've created almost a mantra around this when I have those moments where I recognize something from my past or from a day ago that I want to forgive myself for, and saying, I'm sorry, it's okay, I forgive you, I love you. And expressing remorse for your mistakes. And again, like I said, if needed, making amends and apologizing, including apologizing to yourself. Right? Placing your hand on your heart. I'm so sorry. I love you. I forgive you. Apologizing to yourself. So important. And looking for ways to learn from that experience. And then, of course, focusing on making better choices in the future. When we become self-aware of the things that we don't like, we can then begin to change them. And change doesn't happen overnight. There have been times where you can be very aware of something that needs to be changed or a behavior that you're participating in, but yet you still don't make the changes. Like sometimes it takes a minute for us to keep kind of ruminating over that before changes are made. And I also found this really intriguing article that was talking about the benefits of forgiving ourselves. So one of the benefits is our mental health improves. Self-compassion is associated with higher levels of success, productivity, focus, and concentration. Also, our physical health can improve. Research has shown that forgiveness of ourselves and of others, can improve our cholesterol levels, reduce bodily pain and blood pressure, and lower our risk of heart attack. Our brains are such a complex organism that we really and truly do not understand fully yet. And the brain and what we're thinking, is it positive? Is it negative? Are we holding a lot of resentment towards others, towards ourselves, whatever it is? We don't realize how much that affects our physical health, how much the thoughts that we're thinking affect our physical health. It's crazy. And the more I dive into that topic, the more just interesting it becomes. So another benefit of forgiving yourself will be relationships improving. Having a compassionate and forgiving attitude towards yourself is a crucial component for successful relationships. Being able to forge a close emotional bond with other people is important, but it's also the ability to repair those bonds when they become damaged. So allowing ourselves to push aside our ego, in moments where we know we've wronged somebody, and genuinely apologizing, right? And when you begin to forgive yourself and you have self-love, your relationships may even change. Some people, not all people, might not be able to fit the new version of yourself from the previous idea that they had of you, and they might push back. And sometimes they might constantly remind you of a past mistake. And I just want to very clearly say those aren't your people if you find that somebody's doing that. And frankly, they're just telling on themselves. They're telling you that they were never a friend, and they only liked you when they were able to hold some sort of power over you. So just let them go with peace. And I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I really like talking about this subject. And if you enjoy these podcast episodes, please like, share, and subscribe. Please leave us a comment. Please leave us a review. I'm also a meditation instructor. I teach on the Insight Timer app live every Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you'd like to join us there, it's free. And then I'm also a mindfulness and anxiety coach. If you're interested in a session with me, please visit my website, meganshirey.com. And may you be happy. May you be well. May you be joyous and at ease, and sending you infinite love and light. And until next time.